Before I start, if you've enjoyed the newest series of Rick and Morty, then good for you, and I'm glad you like it. I really enjoyed the first 3 series of the show, but for me, Series 4 is just bad. I don't mean because the previous series are good, it makes Series 4 look bad. No, this series is just plain bad. I guess the best place to start is where I think the problem started. So the first 2 series of the show were cult hits. They were popular, but not with mass audiences just yet. Then during the gap between series 2 and 3 being aired, the community exploded. The season 3 premiere got 11 million views in just 24 hours when it was suddenly dropped on April Fool's Day back in 2017. With this new larger community, the more vocal members gave us a really bad image. You might remember this. There were videos everywhere of people doing horrible things while quoting Rick and Morty. The one that's stuck in my brain still is the guy standing on the counter at McDonald's screaming that he wants Szechuan sauce and that he's Pickle Rick. With all of this going on, I was still enjoying the show, but I was too ashamed to tell people that I was a fan in case they thought I supported stuff like that, or worse, that I was going out and doing it. Then there was the large gap between series 3 and 4 as the creators of the show tried to get a bulk renewal of the show so they could guarantee more episodes than a series at a time. During this time, these more vocal and toxic community members became much quieter and seemed to disappear. Maybe the Szechuan sauce was secretly poisoned or something, who knows. Now we're at series 4 and the writing has absolutely tanked. I should say at the time of recording this, only up to episode 7 has come out, so things could be different with the last few episodes, but to be honest, as things are right now, I don't want to watch another episode of Rick and Morty. I think the biggest problem with this series is the writing. Now I know a show that makes controversial jokes is going to occasionally rub people the wrong way, but it seems with this series they're just trying to please those most vocal toxic members of the Rick and Morty community who had hoped weren't part of the community anymore. Now, I know some people out there will say that the first episode of this series was written specifically to show these people the way they've been sharing their love of the show isn't okay, but to that I say I think that fell on deaf ears and every episode since then has been inviting them deeper into the community. I want to look at the writing in more depth and explain why it doesn't work, mainly with examples from previous episodes where the show has done it a million times better. I think the biggest thing that's been getting the most attention from the latest episode, Pro Mortius, has been the 9/11 and Pearl Harbor joke and how tone deaf it is. The show has done 9/11 jokes before. Back in Series 2, Episode 6, The Ricks Must Be Crazy, Rick says, "There's pros and cons to every alternate reality. Fun fact about this one, it's got telepathic spiders, 11 9/11s, and the best ice cream in the multiverse." 9/11 jokes are a difficult topic that I don't want to get into. The one thing I will say is this joke is much more tasteful than having your main characters go on a rampage to then stop in front of 2 towers long enough for the writers to wink at the camera and say, "Look what we're doing," and then have your characters pat themselves on the back for not recreating that and for recreating Pearl Harbor instead, whilst blaming Saudi Arabians for these incidents. Now some people might say the jokes in the show about Saudi Arabians were made ironically. That doesn't make it okay at all. If you're being racist but doing it ironically, you're still being racist. This is a problem I have with the early series of Dan Harmon's previous show Community, where jokes like this were commonplace, but that's a topic for another time. What a messy situation this show's got itself into that could have been easily avoided by thinking if these jokes were going too far. If you want an example of making jokes of difficult topics, just look at the movie Jojo Rabbit. Almost all the jokes about difficult topics are either about belittling the people involved or pointing out how absurd the real things that happened are. While we're talking about bad taste jokes, I don't understand why this series is so obsessed with incest jokes. In the episode with the dragons, we get treated to multiple spirit bonding, in quotes, scene, which are basically just there because they can't show sex scenes. The joke in all of these scenes is a granddad having sex in front of his grandkids or taking part in an orgy with them. Back in the second episode of Series 1, Lawnmower Dog, during a dream sequence, Morty bumps into a sexualized version of Summer and freaks out and runs away. A much more normal response than showing them all having an orgy together. I don't understand why this is in the show at all. Okay, that's my rant on some of the more disturbing jokes. I want to finish up by looking at some of the broader episode arcs. Going back to the episode The Ricks Must Be Crazy, the episode starts as a parody of Doctor Who and poking fun at some of the concepts of the show. It then builds on this to tell its own story. Looking at episodes that tried this same effect this series, like One Crew Over the Crew Crew's Morty and Rattlestar Rick Lactica. Don't even get me started on how bad the names are. They just try to copy the original material with the occasional parody joke here and there. Pro Mortius does a little better by imagining facehuggers from Alien building an advanced society, despite the fact the facehuggers in Alien are just there to impregnate people to then give birth to the much more powerful and advanced xenomorph, so Rick and Morty's building on this just feels weak. Don't get me started on the fact that they do a flashback to a few weeks earlier of how we got here, despite the fact that's the exact thing the show mocks for being ridiculous back in the episode Look Who's Purging Now. Going back to how the show now feeds into its toxic community members, during this flashback we see Rick starting a YouTube channel talking about things the government doesn't want you to know, but this just adds credit to all the real YouTube channels doing it by having their super smart hero Rick being treated like dirt for attempting to show the real truth, in quotes. Also, what's with hating on Jerry in the most recent episode for him starting beekeeping? I'm not a fan of Jerry in general because he's written to be seen as a pathetic person who can't do much. If that's the character you want in your show, fair enough. But now he's actively trying to improve himself by taking up a new hobby that shows character growth. I know beekeeping isn't the most glamorous of hobbies, but I don't understand all the other characters hating on him just because they like to. Surely Beth would be happy that her husband is finally doing something interesting. Don't worry, that's my final nitpick. I really hope Rick and Morty stops pandering to the toxic parts of the community and goes back to what it was, a show that poked holes in other movies and TV shows whilst attempting to make something better while standing on the shoulders of these giants. If you like this episode, you might like my other essay talking about how the Sonic trailers showed that a good soundtrack can change everything. And feel free to give my other podcast episodes a listen, which give a bit more laid back look at movie details. Personally, I'd recommend the Into the Spider-Verse episode. As always, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.